The Toronto Blue Jays are in a nightmare situation, and if they don't figure things out fast, they're gonna have to make some impossible decisions very soon. The Blue Jays are in probably the toughest division in baseball right now. The Orioles are a young powerhouse, the Yankees are always championship or bust, the Rays use their black magic every year to pull off another winning season, and the Red Sox, even though they've taken a step back, are still the Red Sox. So where does Toronto fit into all this? Well, they're coming off another playoff appearance last year, but they're starting 2024 pretty cold. They have the 6th worst run differential, and with a 21-26 record, they're already 10.5 games behind the Yankees for the division lead. Now, this itself isn't the end of the world. There's still a lot of the season left, but this is about more than just this season. This is about the Blue Jays figuring out what the future of their franchise is gonna look like. Toronto's slow start hasn't been by accident. They've had a tough time hitting and scoring runs, and they haven't been pitching very well either, mainly the bullpen. And the worst part is, most of their key players haven't been playing up to expectations. And when we talk about the key players on this team, we have to start with Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette, because these two are the young building block pieces of this roster. They're arguably your two most important players right now and for your future. As much as some of you want to disagree, Vladdy hasn't been bad. He's taking good at bats and getting hits, he just hasn't been hitting for power, and that's only because even as hard as he hits the ball, he still won't hit it in the air. And Bo hasn't changed much at the plate. He's still putting the ball in play a ton, but he hasn't been able to barrel it up and hit line drives as much this year. And for a guy that doesn't walk a lot, when those hits just aren't falling, you're not giving your team a whole lot offensively. Now, this cold start for Bo isn't quite as concerning. He's put up a low 800s OPS, at least 20 homers, and an average of at least 290 each of the last 3 years. We know what he is at this point, so I'd bet on him figuring things out. But for Vladdy, since he finished second in the 2021 MVP race, we haven't seen him play up to that same level or take that next step with his game. He's supposed to be the big bat in Toronto's lineup by now, and he just hasn't made the adjustments that he needs to. The Blue Jays need these two playing up to their potential, and not just for this year, because Vladdy and Bo are both free agents after next season, so the team's gonna have to decide what they do with these two, and soon, because time is running out for this roster. Toronto has to decide whether the core of their roster is good enough to really compete with. That's why first of all, they need to figure out if Bo and Vladdy are the kind of young stars that you can build a winning roster around. And if that's the case, then the next question is, who do you have around those two? And right now for the Blue Jays, those other key guys you're relying on, mainly because you've committed bigger contracts to them, are George Springer, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, and Jose Barrios. Springer is 34 and making just over $24 million a year through 2026. He's the most expensive player on this roster, and he's supposed to be the other big bat in this lineup. But since he joined Toronto, he's had some more injury issues, his numbers have been dropping the last couple years, and he's off to another freezing cold start to this year. It's looking like his age is catching up to him. Gausman is 33, making $22 million this year, then $23 million each of the next 2 years, and after his first All-Star season in 2021 with the Giants, the Blue Jays brought him in to be their ace. But he hasn't been pitching like himself so far in 2024. His ERA and FIP have both jumped up because he's not getting close to the same amount of strikeouts, he's giving up way more hits, and the most concerning thing is that he's lost almost an entire mile per hour off his fastball from last year. And all this after I said he was one of only 5 aces in baseball. Yeah, that's my bad.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Bassett is 35 and making $22 million a year through next season. He was another solid arm to round out the rotation, but he started this year by giving up way more runs because he's allowing way more base runners, looking like he hasn't found his command yet, giving up a ton of walks and a higher average. And Barrios at 30 years old is making $17.7 million this year, then $18.7 for 2 years, and $24.7 the 2 years after that. He's the youngest of these guys, and at least he's been mostly solid this year. Barrios isn't a high strikeout guy, but he usually doesn't allow a ton of base runners, and that's helping him keep runs off the board this year, but he has been giving up more homers again like he did when he really struggled in 2022. These are the big contract guys you have to help out Bo and Vladdy, and when we look at them, Springer, Gausman, and Bassett are all struggling and making you start to wonder how much their age might be getting to them. You're committed to these guys through the rest of Bichette and Guerrero's team control, and Gausman and Springer for another year after that. Barrios you have through 2028, and he's the only one of these guys performing right now, but he has an opt-out after 2026. So if you're the Blue Jays and you're looking at your core, your two younger guys aren't playing up to their potential right now, 3 of your 4 older guys might be getting too old very soon, and the other one can decide he wants out around the same time you lose everyone else. None of this is looking all that great right now. The Blue Jays need some of their less expensive and team controllable guys to step up, so who's been doing that for them? Well, first let's talk pitching. Yimi Garcia and Trevor Richards have been your only relievers with an ERA under 4.5. Garcia's been locked down, and Richards has been good but giving up some walks and a couple homers. Then your best starter so far has been Yusei Kikuchi, who just plain and simple has been doing it all. Garcia was brought in on a 3-year deal, and he's been a solid reliever. Richards was a starting pitcher first, and he's bounced around a handful of teams, and Kikuchi had his first good season last year. These have been 3 of your best pitchers so far, and all 3 of these guys are set to hit free agency at the end of this year. This was a bullpen that was top 10 in ERA and FIP last year, and now this year it's been all over the place, with guys like Tim Meza, Eric Swanson, and even your closer Jordan Romano all struggling. And then if we look at the lineup, Dalton Varsho's put up the highest F-WAR on the team, leading them in homers while playing great defense. Then Danny Jansen's been taking great at-bats and just hitting like he's playing on rookie mode. And finally, Davis Schneider might have a bit of swing and miss in his game, but he still gets his walks and he's been hitting for pretty good power. But outside of these 3 and Vladdy, there isn't a single other hitter in this lineup that's even close to league average. Bichette, Springer, Justin Turner, Alejandro Kirk, IKF, Kevin Kiermaier. Your next best hitter is Turner with a 669 nice OPS and a 92 WRC+. The Blue Jays were hoping for a bounce back year from Alejandro Kirk, and that's not happening yet. You bring in Justin Turner to DH hoping he has one more year in the tank, and it looks like you were a year too late, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Kevin Kiermaier have never been great hitters. You get those 2 for their defense. And this brings us to how Toronto even got in this situation in the first place, because this isn't a one-year thing. This goes back to decisions they've made over the last couple years that have bit them in the ass. Let's start in 2019, when the Blue Jays went 67-95, finished 4th in the AL East, but most importantly this year, Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. both made their debuts on a roster with a handful of other good young players. We head to 2020 where they managed to snag a wildcard spot with a 32-28 record. Now they'd get swept in the wildcard round, and it was the 2020 season. Still pretty tough to really know what you have at this point, but Toronto was feeling pretty good about their roster. So now we get to 2021. Vladdy finishes 2nd in the MVP race, Bo makes his first All-Star team, you sign Marcus Semien to a 1-year prove-it deal, he goes off and finishes 3rd in MVP voting, and Robbie Ray breaks out and wins the Cy Young Award. The Blue Jays signed George Springer before this year, they traded for Jose Barrios at the deadline, they finished with a 91-71 record and one of the best and highest scoring offenses in the league. But this wasn't enough. They didn't make the playoffs. In fact, they finished 4th in the division, so alright, we still gotta get better. By the way, having a 91-71 record and finishing 4th in your division is wild. But that offseason, they let Robbie Ray and Marcus Semien walk. Now they bring in Kevin Gausman to replace Ray, and honestly, I'm on their side on that one. And they also trade for third baseman Matt Chapman from the A's, and they sign Yusei Kikuchi to a 3-year deal. The Blue Jays go into 2022 hoping for another great year from Vladdy, and even though he takes a bit of a step back, Bichette has another great year. George Springer and Teoscar Hernandez both have over 800 OPSs. Alek Manoah makes the All-Star team and finishes third in Cy Young voting, and Jordan Romano takes over as the full-time closer and makes his first All-Star team. This time they finish second in the AL East with a 92-72 record, making the wild card again, and again getting swept in the first round despite another top offense. After another early round exit, Toronto decides they need to change up their game plan. The high-powered offense just isn't getting it done. They need more defense and they need more pitching. So they trade slugging outfielder Teoscar Hernandez to the Mariners for reliever Eric Swanson and a prospect. They sign platinum glove center fielder Kevin Kiermaier, trade Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and top catching prospect Gabriel Moreno to Arizona for Dalton Varsho, and they sign Chris Bassett and DH Brandon Belt. So then in 2023, Vlad takes another step back. Varsho doesn't hit close to what they expected. Springer, Chapman, and Kirk aren't as big of bats as they had hoped, and old-ass Brandon Belt was arguably your best hitter. Bo was really good again, making his second All-Star team, along with Gosman, who finished third in Cy Young voting and led one of the better pitching staffs in baseball. But the Blue Jays didn't even win 90 games again, finishing 89-73, third in the division, and they got swept in the wildcard round for the third time in 4 years. And that brings us back to this year. And now this last offseason, by all accounts, they were big players in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, thinking that a big-time player like that is what they needed to get over the hump, and it wasn't a terrible idea, it was just everybody else had the same idea. But they didn't get Ohtani, and after their new plan didn't work how they hoped, their offense had a noticeable drop-off last year, their record and point differentials were both a bit worse, and they couldn't even win a single playoff game again. It just seemed like they settled. Wait, are they your average 35-year-old dude? Oh fuck, are they me in a couple years? They brought back Kevin Kiermaier, and their other big free agents were utility man Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, 39-year-old DH Justin Turner, and starting pitcher Yariel Rodriguez, who was coming over from Japan and hadn't pitched since 2022, as a reliever. So what do the Blue Jays do? Because you really only have two choices in this situation. You either add on to the core that you have now and go all in if you think they can win a championship, or you decide this group isn't good enough to go for a World Series and you blow it up. But you absolutely cannot stay right in the middle, because that's the worst place to be in sports. If you go with option 1 and you go for it, Toronto's already at an estimated $226 million payroll according to Fangraphs. Now, I don't personally know how much more room they have to spend, let me know if you know, but they were going after Ohtani. I'm gonna assume they still have some money to add a bit this year if they want to. But then this offseason, you get about $50 million off the books with Turner, Kikuchi, Kiermaier, Garcia, Vogelbach, Jansen, and Richards all hitting free agency. Now, some of that's going to go towards paying your younger guys more as they move up through team control, but you can use a good chunk of that to go and add on to this roster. Then you have to hope you can fill out the rest of the roster with those young guys and maybe some prospects. And some of Toronto's top prospects aren't far away. At AAA, their number 2 prospect, second baseman Orelvis Martinez, is hitting for good power. Their number 5, Leo Jimenez, is an on-base machine with a .409 on-base percentage. Number 6, Addison Barger, has an OPS just over 950 and made his debut this year. And their number 1 prospect, starter Ricky Tiedemann, has struggled through his first couple starts at AAA, but he's up there. Now, option 2 is to tear it down and add to this prospect pool. And that starts with trading Bichette and Guerrero anytime from this trade deadline to next year's, whenever you feel like you get the best return possible. Bo has been one of the more valuable shortstops since 2021, ranking 6th in FWAR out of shortstops. He's only 26 years old. Maybe he'd stick through a couple years of retooling, but there's no doubt you could get a haul back for him if he gets his numbers back up and you trade him with some team control left. Vladdy's the interesting one. because he's been 4th in FWAR since 2021 for first baseman, but his numbers are carried by that 2021 season. Maybe another team thinks they can tweak his swing to maximize his power, and he's only 25 right now, so again, he's still got time to come into his own and be a big piece for either Toronto or another team, so you have to ask yourself, is he more valuable for your future than what you could get back for him? Then if we're looking at other trade chips, you have Jose Barrios, who again is only 30 and on a pretty team-friendly deal. If Kevin Gausman pitches like himself again, $23 million for 2 more years of him is pretty good with what pitchers are getting paid right now. Closer Jordan Romano would get you a good return if he evens out a bit, and this year you could easily flip Kikuchi and Jansen at the deadline if they're still doing close to what they're doing now. 3 first-round exits in 4 years is painful. You know you're close. You're making the playoffs. But is this a World Series winning roster? If it is, then it's time to do everything you can to win it all. And if not, then it's time to make those tough decisions and set yourself up as best as you can for the future. The worst thing you can do is just stay put where you're at. Too good to get top draft capital, but not good enough to hang with the big boys. And if you don't do something, you're gonna watch your best guys leave for almost nothing or fade into the twilights of their careers. So you have to make a decision. But these are the kind of decisions that keep GMs up at night, because if you make the wrong call, you're setting your team back years and probably looking for a new job. So let's play GM. What are you doing with the Blue Jays in this situation if you're in charge? Are you gonna go all in, or are you tearing it down and starting over? Leave a comment and let me know, and if there's another team you want to see a full breakdown of like this one, let me know that too. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure you like and subscribe to see more videos from us, and for more baseball content like this, you can check out the video on your screen now. Thank you for watching and supporting the channel. Hope you have a good one. Later.